11-15 in the month of June. Is that it for the 2025 Atlanta Braves? Let's talk about it. Yes, welcome on in to Braves Today for Monday, June 30th. Your source of news, notes, and updates on your Atlanta Braves. I'm your host, Lindsay Crosby. You can follow me on social media at Crosby Baseball. You can follow the show on X, Braves_today. We have a Facebook page and Instagram as well. And you can find all of my written work, bravestoday.com. That's the Braves Today Substack, as this is both a podcast and a newsletter. Lot to get to from over the weekend. The Atlanta Braves dropped the series to Philly in sometimes embarrassing ways, right? Look at Friday night and how that got destroyed. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the month of June as a whole. And we're going to talk about if this is truly it for this iteration of the roster. And I guess what you do between now and the deadline, or between now and All-Star break, and if that changes things. But I want to start off with the weekend that was against Philadelphia. You go into it with Bryce Elder, Spencer Schwellenbach, and Spencer Strider. And so the thought process here, you have to feel okay that you can at least be competitive in two of these games. Because Atlanta was not competitive in game one. They get absolutely destroyed in game one, 13-0 by Philly. And the story here is Bryce Elder was bad. There's no sugarcoating that. Bryce Elder was bad. 2 innings. He doesn't record an out in the third. He faced 5 batters. Doesn't record an out in the third. 8 hits, 10 runs, 9 earned, 4 walks, 2 strikeouts. Gives up 3 home runs, right? Trey Turner takes him deep in the second. Nick Castellanos takes him deep for a 3-run homer in the second. Otto Kemp takes him deep for a 3-run homer in the third. I say this too much. I've tried to cut back recently. 2 things can be true at once in this situation. Okay, thing one is that Bryce Elder was not good. He was not competitive, okay? Mark Bowman of MLB.com had a great stat after the game. Elder's just the 3rd Braves pitcher to get tagged for 9 or more runs over officially 2 innings or less. Again, he did face 5 batters in the 3rd inning, but doesn't record an out. So officially, the outing is 2 innings. And that list, Aaron Blair gave up 9 earned runs and 1 in the 3rd innings at Pittsburgh on May 17th. That was actually May 17th, 2016. That was actually Brian Snitker's very first game as manager. And then Taylor Phillips gave up 9 runs in 1 inning at the Brooklyn Dodgers, July 15th, 1957. He entered in the 8th inning. So, again, 2 things can be true at once here. Bryce Elder was bad, okay? And it's not the first time he's been bad. This month, he had that dominant start in San Francisco on June 7th. 1 run on 3 hits across 8 innings, no walks, and 12 strikeouts. Anyway, you dominant from any perspective. Since then, Bryce Elder has allowed 18 earned runs in his last 10 2/3 innings. He has 8 walks to 6 strikeouts and 5 home runs. His ERA is up to 5.82. And as we've talked about quite a bit on here with the Didier Fuentes fallout, with the Chris Sale fallout, you don't have a lot of other options. That's the problem. You have to keep running Bryce Elder out there until you sign a guy, make a trade, do something. Because you just don't have very many options right now. You're starting Didier Fuentes on Tuesday, and we'll get to that probably tomorrow's show. Because you don't have any other options. We've broken down everybody that you can possibly do. We're talking about reliever Jackson Stevens coming up after 2 starts in Gwinnett because you're doing so poorly right now. But the other thing here is Atlanta handled this wrong, okay? If you remember, 2 hour and 19 minute rain delay. And they didn't put the tarp on the field until after warmups, just minutes before game time. And the mistake Atlanta made is they didn't follow what Philly did and shift to a bullpen game. Philly had prospect Mick Abel set to start. He warmed up and everything. And when that game went into a rain delay of 2+ hours, they pulled him. They officially changed from Mick Abel to reliever Tanner Banks. Tanner Banks went 2 innings. Converted starter Taijuan Walker went 2 innings. And then Alan Rangel went 5. Like, dog. That was nuts. He threw 71 pitches. I don't think he knew he was going to be doing that until probably the end of the rain delay. Or some point in time in the rain delay. Dog. Atlanta, like, Mick Abel's listed in the box score for this game. I believe he actually, I don't know if he gets credit for a start, but he's in every box score because he was submitted in the official lineup that was exchanged with the umpires at the very beginning. But he never pitched. Atlanta warmed up Bryce Elder, had him sit for almost 2.5 hours, and then threw him out there. And you got the worst of both worlds, because not only did he get blasted, and he got blasted, let's be clear, he got destroyed, but he also didn't give you length. And it feels like if you're going to, I mean, he threw 66 pitches to get through 2+ innings. It feels like if you're going to make him go into that game after almost 2.5 hours, he either needs to give you length or he needs to not be bad. And it's very hard for any starting pitcher to warm up, sit for 2.5 hours, and then not be bad. We talk about starting pitchers coming out of the game if a rain delay's 30 minutes. He sat for over 2 hours. So like, and then he had to pitch in the rain. It's like, again, he was not good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not defending Bryce Elder. He was not good, but he was also not in a position to succeed. And Atlanta handled that wrong. And it's been bothering me all weekend. And I did not plan to spend this much time in the first segment complaining about that. But it absolutely was not wrong. There is not an easy way to search this. But I would be willing to bet this season that is the longest rain delay where the starter has still come into the game after the rain delay. I mean, I'd be willing to bet $100. That is the longest amount of time a starting pitcher has been asked to warm up, sit, and then come into a game and pitch. There's no way anybody else has handled this situation worse than Atlanta did on Friday night. The Braves actually turn around, get a win on Saturday. As always, Spencer Schwellenbach is phenomenal. 12 strikeouts, 1 walk, 1 run on 3 hits across 7 innings. Iglesias and Montero give scoreless innings for the 8th and the 9th. And I'm going to argue here that Atlanta's offense wasn't that good. We talked about it on the postcast over on Locked On Sports Atlanta. So go check that out if you want some of the details on this game. But Atlanta's offense was not good in this game, but they got bailed out by Sean Murphy hitting a grand slam. And then game 3, you saw some of the effects of Atlanta's offense not being good. You lose 2-1. Spencer Strider gets the bad luck loss. He allows 2 earned runs across 7 innings and takes a loss. And the thing about Strider's outing, I do want to get to this real quick because I thought it was really interesting how this went. Philly's always had really good game plans, it feels like, against Spencer Strider. You might remember the 2023 NLDS start, where Philly's game plan against Strider was we're just going to foul off fastballs, we're going to sit on the slider. And Strider adjusted by ramping up the fastball velocity to almost 100. And that, like in retrospect, that outing was the reason that he did that work to develop a curveball. Was because he had 2 pitches and Philly said, hey, the slower one, we're going to sit on that and crush it. We're just going to keep fouling off the better, like the harder one. And so he worked on a curveball so that if you're doing that game plan, he can drop a curveball below your bat and still get swings and misses and get outs. Philly's game plan this time was we're going to swing at almost every single fastball. We're just gonna hit the fastball and do our best to ignore the slider, because Strider, typically what he's doing, the game plan with this fastball slider combo is fastballs up in the zone, you play the slider for a chase below the zone off of it. And we've seen Strider adjust a little bit, bringing down the fastball locations to try to throw the fastball lower in the zone so that it better blends with the slider and he can get more swings and misses. Philly swung 26 times at Strider's fastball on Sunday. They whiffed one time and they put 14 into play. They barely chased the slider. I think it was like 7 whiffs on 15 swings at the slider. Not as many swings as you would have liked against the slider. Plenty of whiffs still. But he also had a career high in ground ball outs with 11 because bringing the locations out and trying to adjust. I'm always impressed with Philly's game plans against Spencer Strider. It feels like they've really learned from that regular season domination that he had of them, and they always have a very good game plan that every single player subscribes to and does well against. So shout out to Philly for that. And really, Atlanta's offense was the problem in Game 3. They go 0 for 1 with runners in scoring position because Atlanta only had 1 at-bat with a runner in scoring position. 6 total hits. Sean Murphy has a solo shot. All of the rest are singles. Just more of what we've seen from this Braves team. Dylan Lee's a dog to get out of his 8th inning troubles. I love how Atlanta put him in to a close game against the top of the order. That is the analytically correct usage of your best reliever, right? And Brian Sittker used to always hold his closer for the 9th. Or if it went to extras, he'd hold them until that inning, right? And he got better about throwing his closer in the 9th, even in a tie game. And then this was throwing your best reliever in Dylan Lee in the most important situation to go to your best reliever. So as much as we dog on Brian Sittker, credit for using Dylan Lee in the 8th, credit for Dylan Lee for getting out of that jam. And then Raisel Iglesias pitches a scoreless 9th, but Atlanta just can't seem to get anything going and they lose 2-1. I want to talk about the month that was as a whole and what has to happen next. We'll do that right here on Braves Today. But first, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Chinook Seedery. Absolute best sunflower seeds in the market. Listen, I need you guys to understand that I like to eat food. You can't tell because I'm not a huge person, but I love food. I snack all the time. I work from home, which is part of my problem with that. And Chinook Seedery is the best way to do it. 8 flavors, original, just a nice blend of saltiness and sweetness. Lemon pepper, jalapeno ranch, smokehouse barbecue, hatch chili, dill pickle, cinnamon toast, and Parmesan and pepper. Go to ChinookSeedery.com, ChinoOok, ChinookSeedery.com, promo code BRAVES because it gets you a couple things, okay? Thing 1, if you buy a sampler pack, which is these little 2-ounce packets of all 8 flavors, they always ship that for free, but you get 10% off. Once you know what you like, or if you already know what you like, you can buy these at Buc-ee's, by the way. You can try them at Buc-ee's. You can buy all the flavors at Buc-ee's. You can either buy a variety pack with some of every flavor, or you can build your own. And promo code BRAVES gets you 10% off that order. It also gets you free shipping on orders over $40. So again, ChinookSeedery.com, promo code BRAVES. Free shipping on orders over $40, 10% off, and supports Braves Today. Welcome back to Braves Today. Lindsay Crosby. I want to go over the month of June, okay? Because a lot of stuff did not go right for Atlanta this month, and now you are in a situation where it feels like you might be done. That might have been the nail in the coffin this weekend, is losing that series. You've got what on paper should be some winnable games between now and the All-Star break. 3 against LA this week, 3 against Baltimore, who's been better recently, but I believe is actually farther behind in the standings than you are. Braves are 38-45. Baltimore's 36-47. So technically worse in the standings than you are. Atlanta still has a positive run differential, plus 12. Baltimore's at minus 77. We'll talk about them later this week. And then you have to go to the West Coast, to Sacramento to face the Athletics. Super late games during the week. Not going to be fun for anybody in Atlanta to try to watch these and then to watch our recap show, watch the postcast, and then 3 in St. Louis before the All-Star break. But the month of June, just a disaster for Atlanta. Okay, 11-15. Not the first losing season of the year for Atlanta. They went 13-14 in May. But like, you lost ground in the wild card race in the month of June. Because you have to understand, this is not just Atlanta in a vacuum. There's other teams in the wild card race as well, and some of them played pretty well, right? Milwaukee's 8-2 in their last 10. They've been hot in the month of June. St. Louis, 7-3 in their last 10. Heck, Miami is 8-2 in their last 10. They've played really well. Atlanta and Miami have the same number of losses at 45. Miami is exactly one game in the win column behind Atlanta. And they have a negative 74 run differential. But Miami keeps doing that thing where they keep winning close games and they keep finding ways to make it happen. And that's the problem. Like, they're 13-14 in one-run games. Atlanta's 11-20. So they've not been great, but they've been much better than the Braves have. The Braves have been terrible in one-run games. They went 2 for 6 on one-run games in the month of June. And if you remember, Atlanta had 5 consecutive losses from June 4th through the 8th that were one-run games, including twice being walked off. 3 of those were the back end of the bullpen. Bryce Elder and Scott Blewett blew that great game, that giant lead against Arizona. Pierce Johnson had both the walk-offs against San Francisco. And then the first game of that stretch and the last game of that stretch were offensive losses. The pitching staff allowed just 6 runs across those 2 games, 1 to Arizona, 1 to San Francisco, but the offense scored just 4, and you lost both games. And that's the biggest thing for me for the month of June, is you can see how the bullpen cost you some games, and your month would look a lot better if that hadn't have happened. Now, can you is the bullpen completely fixed? No, I would argue it's better. Putting Dylan Lee into I called it the 9th inning role when I wrote about this morning in the newsletter, but really it's the highest leverage role. It's gone a long way towards stabilizing things. It's not completely fixed, but a long way. He did not allow an earned run in the entire month. Dylan Lee allowed a total of 5 hits and 3 walks, opposite 15 strikeouts. Raisel Iglesias pitching the 8th, mostly the 8th inning. He pitched the 9th on Sunday, but no runs, 5 hits, 1 walk, 8 strikeouts. Deisabel Hernandez had a rehab outing in Gwinnett on Sunday. Scoreless inning, 1 strikeout, threw 3 pitches of 100 miles per hour. I would argue that the main reason you were so bad in one-run games in the month of June, again, a lot of those losses were bullpen losses. I would argue that is not as big of a problem as it was. I would still love the Braves to go out and get a high-leverage reliever that has control for next year. If they trade for a guy that's just for this season, I'm going to be mad about it. Because this season I don't want any sort of ad that is only for this year. Because this team, frankly, is not going to do it this year. Let's be honest. The offense, as a whole, has been underwhelming in the month of June. Which we knew that, right? But I don't think we realized how bad they've been in the month of June, okay? I pulled these numbers last night, so this could change a little bit. Some teams do play today. The Braves are obviously done, but some teams do play today. But when I pulled these numbers last night, Atlanta's offense, the collective batting line, 234 batting average, 313 on base, 357 slug. Again, this is mostly the same roster that slugged 500 for an entire season in 2023. That 234 batting average, 25th in baseball for the month. The 313 on base, 20th in baseball for the month. The 357 slug, 28th in baseball for the month. Behind only the Chicago White Sox and Cleveland Guardians. The Colorado Rockies slugged better. The Marlins slugged better. The Nationals slugged better. The Pirates slugged better. Like, teams that are not that good. The Orioles slugged better. The Athletics slugged better. The Royals won exactly one home game in the month of June, and they slugged better than the Atlanta Braves. Just frustrating. And here's the thing. Atlanta hit 23 home runs in the month. 23 home runs. That was 6th in the entire sport. They hit 23 home runs and then barely did anything else when it came to extra base hits. And here's the thing too. I mentioned the on base being 20th in baseball. Of Atlanta's 23 home runs, 13 of them were solo shots. Nobody was on base. They did get their first grand slam of the year on Saturday. Shout out Sean Murphy. But, and what's frustrating, Ronald Acuna Jr. had 6 home runs. 4 of them had no one on base. The other 2, only Nick Allen was on base. I know they're not going to do it. We'll talk about this tomorrow. I know they're not going to do it. I would love to see Jurickson Profar leading off ahead of Ronald. Give Ronald freaking dudes on base to drive in. They're not going to do that. He wants to lead off. They love the tone it sets. But I would love for Atlanta to have somebody on base when Ronald comes to bat. That would be nice. They hit 34 doubles in the month, 27th in baseball. Here's the thing. So most of their hits were singles, right? 311 total bases, 27 in baseball too. Most of their hits were singles. And then they weren't getting those guys into scoring position. 1 sack bunt in the month. 8 steals. The 8 steals, 29th in baseball. They attempted 10. They were 8 for 10. The Dodgers attempted 10 and were 7 for 3. So Atlanta was ahead of only the Dodgers. But obviously the Dodgers hit a lot better than Atlanta did. And we saw the Braves start to make some adjustments on the margins with the lineup. Alex Verdugo and Michael Harris did not start games 2 and 3. Verdugo checked in as a pinch hitter in game 2, and Harris checked in for defense in game 2. But they didn't start, right? Eli White and Stuart Fairchild started 2 games because there was lefty starters on the mound, right? So a little bit of tweaking there. Nick Allen's hit 240 for the month. Like, you'll take 240 with Gold Glove defense. That is much better than he was doing earlier in the year. You'll take 240, right? And you have to think that Jurickson Profar is going to help with some of this. He hit 326 for his rehab stuff. He will be back on Wednesday, not Tuesday. I think I got that wrong on the postcast. Everybody got that wrong. I think Mark Bowman of MLB.com had Tuesday in his story, and they had to update it to Wednesday. So everybody got that wrong. It goes by number of games, not by date. I don't think he'll play on Tuesday with Gwinnett. I think he'll report to Atlanta, probably get checked out by doctors one last time, get a rest day, and then he'll start on Wednesday. But the biggest issue for Atlanta, like they did the roster tinkering there, but the tinkering doesn't matter if you've got stars that aren't starring. We'll get to that next, right here on Braves Today. Final segment of Braves Today. Lindsay Crosby. I want to tell you how dire things were in June for some of Atlanta's biggest stars. And when I wrote this on the newsletter, I'm actually kind of proud of this line. I said several aircraft carriers are taking on water. There's this saying a lot of people use about the stars in your lineup. They call them aircraft carriers, right? And they have to perform for, finish the metaphor however you want, for your fleet to be competitive in battle, whatever, I don't know. But it's one thing if the bottom of your lineup is not good at the plate. The Dodgers won the World Series last year. Their number 8 and number 9 hitters for the year hit 220 and 228. Okay? But when the heart of your order is not hitting, that's another problem. So I pulled the batting averages for Atlanta's 5 stars. Ronald Acuna Jr., Matt Olson, Austin Riley, Marcell Ozuna, and Ozzie Albies for the month of June. Ronald, 0 complaints. 360 batting average, 491 on base, 596 slug. Can't be mad about any of that. Matt Olson, Similar situation, 313 batting average in June, 427 on base, 510 slug. Can't be mad about that. He moved to the number 2 hole for a reason. Austin Riley, not bad, but not nearly good enough. 255 average. You'll take a 255 average, right? He was hitting better than that, but you'll take that. 292 on base, 368 slug. Not working. He had 2 home runs and 9 RBI for the month. You got to get better performance out of your largest contract in team history. And that's all there is to it. You got to get better performance, especially since he's no longer playing Gold Glove caliber defense. I haven't made the Gold Glove that man joke on Twitter in over a month and a half, right? But that's not the biggest problem among your stars. In the month of June, Marcell Ozuna and Ozzy Albies have been virtually unplayable. Ozzy Albies, 198 batting average, 278 on base, 250 slug. Marcell Ozuna has been worse. 188 batting average, 10 points worse than Ozzy, 263 on base, 15 points worse than Ozzy, 287 slug, 37 points better. Let's give him a single flower there. Those two guys, Ozuna and Albies, combined for 2 hits and 50 strikeouts in the month. They had 11 RBI combined, despite usually hitting 4th and 5th. It doesn't matter what you do with Michael Harris. It doesn't matter how Nick Allen hits. It doesn't matter what Jurickson Profar does from the 5 hole or whatever. When those two guys are playing like that, and Austin Riley's not carrying a lot of the load in the slugging department, despite batting third a lot of times, it doesn't matter what the bottom of your lineup does. Riley has to fix it. There's no other real option to play third base. Riley has to fix it. There's not really an option to play second base, but they're going to have to do something. Nacho Alvarez left to start last week, and Gwinnett injured with an oblique injury. We've not seen him in the lineup since. I believe. I haven't actually checked, but I don't remember seeing him in the lineup. I figured I'd see a message about that when he re-entered the lineup. Maybe you play Luke Williams at second base a little bit. I don't know what you do. It's really hard. Yeah, you can bench Michael Harris when he bats 148 for the month. Like, it's less than his weight, right? It's hard to bench the longest tenured player on your team who's a fan favorite and an infielder at a spot where you have no clear backup. It's a lot harder to bench Ozzy. It's a lot harder to bench your DH, who has not been good. They need to do something about both those guys. Again, you need to play Luke Williams a little bit or something at second. I don't think Luke Williams is better, but you got to do something. Ozuna definitely feels like he needs to have an IL stint. You can combine the catchers at DH. You can even find opportunities where, maybe you have Baldwin in the game and you think it's a good matchup for Eli White. And so you put Jurickson Profar at DH, you let Eli White play left field, or maybe he keeps playing center. But you can find ways to fill the DH spot for 2 weeks. You got to give Ozuna some time off. None of this is working. And again, bench Michael Harris for Eli White. Whatever. Do shortstop. It doesn't matter what you do at the bottom of the order when your number 3, 4, and 5 hitters are doing what they're doing. Doesn't matter. And if Atlanta can't fix that, if Atlanta can't figure out how to get more offense from the heart of the order, then this season's already over. I know a lot of people consider this season to be over. They are technically entering a winnable stretch. Okay? The Angels have had a good offense recently. It's going to be a struggle. We'll talk about this starting tomorrow. 2 lefties starting the series. You may see Eli White and Stuart Fairchild start at least one more game before Profar's back. We'll talk about all that tomorrow. But the point of this is do or die. These last games before the All-Star break, you've got 12. If Atlanta doesn't win at least 7 of these, and really it needs to be 8. They need to win all 4 series. If Atlanta doesn't win 8 of these, then it is officially time to stick a fork and discuss selling at the deadline. AA said they would not do it, barring some sort of collapse. Guess what? That collapse is on the horizon. Again, you had your worst calendar month from a win-loss perspective in June, and you lost ground. You are about to get passed by the Miami Marlins. We may be there. That collapse may be here. You've got 2 weeks. You've got 12 games. Let's see if Atlanta can do it. This has been Braves Today for Monday, June 30th. Do me a favor. If you're listening on audio, leave a 5-star review with some kind words. Apple, Spotify, YouTube Music. That'd be great. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you know what we do when we drop new episodes. It's usually every weekday at noon. Our live shows, I'm trying to figure out this week with the 4th of July being on Friday. We are probably not going to do a live show simply because the fact that a lot of people are not going to be home. I probably won't be home. Trying to figure out what we're going to do instead in that situation. So let me know what you want to do down below, by the way. If you're watching on YouTube, leave me a comment. If you're listening on audio, I'm on social media at Crosby Baseball. You can tweet at me. I think they still call those tweets. I don't know. You can't call them X's. I guess they still call them tweets. Anyway, until next time, this has been Braves Today.